So Beckn was a very simple idea with a very powerful conviction. We were asking as to why is that it's so difficult for a consumer and provider of any value find it literally so hard to discover each other. You know, they have a common need, discover each other, trust each other, and exchange value like contract, book, order. Why is it so hard? Why is it that you always there's this notion that you need somebody in the center to facilitate this exchange of value between a consumer and provider, be it a taxi driver, be it a farmer, be it a restaurant owner, or somebody with some little extra energy to sell. And then we started looking at how did we generally exchange value in the real world as a society, as a civilization. And we see one thing, one common pattern that kind of brings it all together, the idea of networks. We are literally immersed in networks of all kinds. We're literally living in networks. One network is the network of communication. We all use language as a common way to exchange, express thoughts, and communicate and talk to each other and get things done. And language brings it all together. It's kind of that connecting tissue that all make us work like a network because we all share the language. And language could be diverse, yet it's possible for me to pick up a language and suddenly connect to a whole bunch of people that I could never connect to. So that's a network. So that's interesting because language did not need somebody in between for me to speak to, and the person in turn is communicating that on behalf of me to the other person. So language is always sort of naturally peer-to-peer. And then we look at telecommunication networks and internet. I mean, it's so obvious for us that if I have a mobile connection with one telecom operator, I can call anybody who's on a completely different operator if I just dial the number. It's not that I have to have a connection on the other telecom operator's connection to have this conversation. So that was also, like language, sort of interoperable. Same goes for emails and internet. I could use any browser on any device to connect to any website and source the content. So if we naturally have networks around us, why is it that we don't have networks to exchange value? Why are we resigned to this fact that we need one big central platform that has to bring both consumers and providers onto this one big platform to sort of exchange value, trust each other, discover and sell goods and services, consume goods and services? So that sort of set the motion for a very radical idea that we didn't realize at that time was a radical idea, but gave birth to this idea of Beckn. So Beckn essentially is a shortened form of beckon, as in beckoning in English, a human gesture that you use to sort of signal or stay in command of yourself. It's a signal beckoning. I thought that's a cool name. But with that idea, we said, is it possible to create, just like how we have language for communication, we have language for computers to connect to each other, is it possible for us to create a digital language to exchange values between a consumer and provider directly, what we call as peer-to-peer, with nobody in the center? Is it possible for us to move away from this notion that it's always the platforms that could do it, to the idea that it could actually be a protocol, a digital computer language that can express an intent, express a catalog of value, whether it's an item in a grocery store, or it's a ride from a taxi, or it could be a doctor's calendar for teleconsultation, or somebody having some empty idle capacity in a battery to make it available for someone else to store energy in. Just putting that catalog, getting somebody's intent to find it and use it, make them talk to each other, and go through this process of discovering, ordering, fulfilling the need between these two parties. Is it possible to express that as a language, as a computer protocol, as a set of open specifications, a bunch of nouns and verbs that machines can understand to say, oh, this is what you're looking for, and this is what the other platform on the other side can offer, and make all these platforms talk to each other without necessitating having somebody in the center, but allowing a consumer to be on any platform, a provider to be on any platform, and yet talk to each other. So the protocols idea led to Beckn getting manifested as an open protocol, as a bunch of open source specifications, and it's been one crazy radical ride ever since. I call it an infrastructure that keeps surprising itself. We thought we can probably solve urban mobility, ride hailing, and public transport with it, but then we surprised ourselves by suddenly seeing that it's being used for e-commerce, for logistics, for healthcare. And now suddenly we see it getting used in areas like circularity, whether it's materials and water, for energy and energy transition, where we're talking about people using Beckn protocol for peer-to-peer energy trading or interoperable EV charging network across the country. So Beckn has therefore rapidly sort of unlocked this idea of open networks in multiple sort of domains and sectors and across multiple countries, right from India to Brazil to Kenya, Gambia, Netherlands, and so on. And seems like it is something that people always wanted, yet couldn't express and define. And we thought probably that's where our moonshot is. Beckn is that moonshot that we thought could probably open a new vector of thought, a frame to reimagine how we move value globally as a country, at a population scale, as a society, and as a civilization in general. That's the what part of Beckn, and also the exciting part about what the journey has been so far in the last 6 years across commerce, energy, retail, and so many other things. And just can't wait to see what's in store for Beckn in the coming next phase of this evolution. What's next for Beckn? Wow, very exciting. So one of the things we are trying to do is ask again a different question this time, to see that if we were to do this sector by sector, country by country, to cover everybody, leaving nobody behind, and the way we are doing it for the last 6 years, if we were to continue doing that, we probably would take 1 million more years to get there. So is there a faster, sustainable way of doing this? And that's where our motivation and the idea of Networks for Humanity come in. Networks for Humanity is the global avatar of our foundation. I see it as a network of labs, with labs like the one we have in India. We have labs in US, Switzerland, Singapore, and hopefully a few more coming up in future, to sort of bring this idea of Beckn, this vision of Beckn, along with the other visions which I'm going to talk about. But this vision of Beckn, expand that conversation, expand that dialogue, expand that collaboration with a wider range of stakeholders for the different parts of the world, to see how we can collaborate faster, work with governments, regulators, the big infrastructure companies like hyperscalers, innovators, startups across from ag tech to ed tech to fintech, all of them, and then the new breed of AI founders, as we see them, kind of come together and see what are the limits of the imagination to do this for let's say urban youth in low-income countries, to a fascinating new utility that is born digital in the energy sector. How both of them see the idea and the potential of Beckn and rapidly build on top of it. How you can have an AI founder think about, how can I put an agentic play coming together with an idea like Beckn? So that's the space where I thought idea of Networks Humanity gives us the bigger tent of presence across the world to have these conversations and actually bring that bias for action, to do it at a much larger scale and speed. And the timing could not have been better. I mean, I see this as a time of great convergence. This decade has been exceptionally phenomenal from what we have seen in the recent decades. Of course, there's AI that's here, that's real, and there's real adoption happening at scale. People are imagining absolutely new things that could have never been possible. Then we have the entire cryptographic tokenization technologies that are emerging, really sort of solving for the friction around trust and moving money and value and collapsing the cost of moving all these three at a population scale. Then we have the bigger and complex problems that we're all going through, whether it's about energy transition, sustainability, climate action, closing window of how quickly can humanity gear up to confront that reality and mitigate some of the big shocks that are coming because of that, and a whole lot more. All of this coming at the time, I think there's no better time to set up a global playground with Beckn. And if I can just make this Beckn-enabled open network as a playground available for these convergence to sort of flourish and unlock a lot more innovation and value while solving for inclusivity and equity, I think it's going to be crazy. So that's the future I'm very excited about. And I'm even more excited about doing this mission of Beckn with the mission of Finternet, another incredible, radical, audacious idea that complements so well with the idea of Beckn, and doing them together. Beckn as an infrastructure, as a vision that can move value, as a way to move value, a new way to move value, and Finternet that tokenizes value and brings a whole lot of assets and credentials and IDs and so many other things into play, combining them together and giving it back to the user, to the small businesses, to people like us, to a farmer, to a taxi driver, or to a young student learning in this era, to do a lot more, access more opportunities. I think that's putting things on literally on steroid in this new phase of what we are thinking about evolution. I can't be more excited. I wake up every day thinking, what's the next big idea? Who is that smart startup founder who's like saying, oh, I'm already doing a bunch of crazy things, but with the idea of Beckn, we can do this. And to accelerate that, we want to be not just be offering the protocol, which is already open source, everybody uses it, but that maybe it's time for us to put ourselves in the play a little bit more and offer a global multi-cloud runtime infrastructure of network coordination services, something that we intend to build as Beckn Labs under NFH, and offer it as a programmable playground to make these innovations come faster and people realize value. Be it the government trying to set up an agriculture network, or big energy system operators and regulators trying to do digital transformation of how the energy transition, accelerating their agenda, or we solving for the new world of agentic commerce with this. And I think it offers this chance of, really a chance for us to not build from the past, but come from the future and the abundance of the future that can unlock. So when it comes to agentic with Beckn, it's not about putting an AI wrapper on a digital wrapper, which itself was a wrapper of the physical world, but to actually think about the fact that if there is going to be a trusted agentic ecosystem that's going to come, it's not just about how good the models are, how good the agents are, but also needing this neutral, universal digital infrastructure, and we are adding a whole new wrappers and layers on top of that rather than putting an AI wrapper on something old. So it's a completely new way of doing new things. I think you don't get that chance often. It's very few moments like this in your lifetime. And we see that aperture opening up, and we're just standing up to grab it with both hands. And that's what I'm excited about.